Today, Mike and Amari talk about an important topic that has come up in recent history with us helping a lot of our long-term customers in terms of how to transition out of their house or improvements that they can make to stay in it more comfortably. As far as transitioning out, we talk about picking a proactive and savvy realtor, someone who's going to be proactive and aggressive about doing the absolute necessary things to get the house sold and get the most money that you can get out of that house. In terms of what needs to be fixed up, maybe some things that don't, basically how to spend $20,000 and get $50,000 to $60,000 back. You don't need that glamour luxury $50,000 kitchen. You might just need to do small touch-ups in certain areas that'll really bring value and make someone's first impression really good when they see the house. You got to know your customer, know who the buyer is essentially. Is it a young couple with a kid looking to make that new home their first home? Because if so, that person isn't necessarily going to want to look at the house and see a major project that they have to do, all this different stuff. They want to be able to look at it and see the life that they're going to be living, see that their family is going to have a home that they can see themselves, growing in, their kid growing up in. We also talk about the emotional aspects that go into it, how to organize, the photos, the mementos and boxes of important family memorabilia, how to organize that stuff so that, it doesn't get lost in the sauce of all the transitioning out, as well as, it's not weighing so heavy on your mind as you're thinking about next steps. We also talk about, pros and cons of land contracts. And in terms of staying in your home, if you're not necessarily wanting to make that step outside of your house, you want to stay in, but you need some infrastructure to make it more comfortable. A couple things that we recommend is installing things like a chairlift or grips for, bathroom areas or stairs. Jubilee TV is something we recommend. It allows family members or close ones to, basically control your TV for you. We have some elderly people who, aren't as savvy with technology. So, having, someone younger being able to control the TV, set it up for them, set up, playlists of different videos or movies for them, basically manage the entertainment for them, which also has functions of, FaceTime and, video chatting more so you can communicate and talk and check in. Installing Blink cameras or Simply Safe or Ring security systems, motion sensor lights. We get into all of this and more on how to transition out, or if you want to stay in. It's Mike and Amari, and this is the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast.
Hi, everybody. It's Mike Riley with my engineer-in-chief, Amari Clancy. Amari, keeping warm on this cold winter morning.
As warm as possible. I should be drinking something warm, but I got a cold Celsius in front of me, making me that much colder. So.
Well, that's what they're drinking to our listeners in Australia. So, but anyways,
exactly.
we want to do a quick podcast about, if you're one of our elderly clients, do you want to stay in the house? Do you want to transition out of the house? And this is something we've been doing, probably the last 10, 15 years in our business. We started getting into properties. We started, probably 30 years ago, in the contracting business. We'd have a lot of our older customers, longtime customers who wanted to get some help selling their house. And so we found ourselves, I found myself going out to an estimate and kind of learning as I was going about, what do you need to sell the house? And what was fascinating about that experience was that I could hear it from both sides. A lot of times I'd go out to a house where it'd been sitting on the market for 4 months. 5 months. And the realtor kept saying it's a slow market, it's a slow market. And I recall many times going out to this house, customers calling me, hey, the house ain't moving. Maybe they got one of our flyers. This is before email blasts. And so I'd go out there. I would be shocked at what I'm seeing. I'd walk up to there's no curb appeal. The windows are dirty. The front entryway is got peeling paint. There's weeds and, overgrown garden in front. The lawn hasn't been cut or trimmed. The house is dirty. I mean, so if I'm a prospective buyer, I'm going to drive up, take a look, and keep driving.
Right.
So I remember getting into some arguments with some realtors, and I would say to them, how come you don't have this house cleaned up for sale? And you know what they always said, Amari? Take a guess. What was the reply I would get?
It's not important having that cleaned up.
Guess again. We're gonna have Mark put the clock ticking in. Da, da,
Right.
da, 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 da. Get the Jeopardy clock in there, Mark.
Can't get anybody out to do it.
Nope. Last guess. You get three shots. You'll be shocked when you hear the answer. Folks, you can play at home.
Right. The homeowner doesn't want it done?
No, unfortunately, no. The realtor said, literally, I heard this all the time. Well, they didn't tell me if they wanted to do it. And I looked at them and said, wait a minute, you're the professional. Then I would talk to the customer and say, how come you didn't do X, Y, Z? I mean, these are the low fruit of getting your house ready to sell. And they said, well, the realtor never brought it up. Listen, folks, at its core, when you hire us, even if you want to hire us as a consultant and you don't live in Cleveland, you're out in the sticks in Minnesota or wherever, you're listening to this podcast and you got a aging mother-in-law like I have, great mother-in-law who's 95, we're transitioning her out of the house. If you want a consulting, I mean, there's ABCs you do to get a house ready to sell. And one of the first things you do is you got to pick the right realtor. That realtor has to be proactive. That realtor has to be somebody who's a hustler, not somebody who's going to take your listing, who's going to throw it up on the MLS and then go out to lunch. Or wait a minute, I got to go pick up the kids at school. Nothing wrong with picking the kids up at school, but you don't want a passive realtor who's just phoning it in. You want an active player who's got a game plan for your house. So that's rule number one. Get a proactive realtor. And if you need help getting a proactive realtor, you contact us because we got a questionnaire we ask any realtor that we bring in. And we do background checks. What's their sales batting average? How many how many weeks is it on the market? Do they do price adjustments? Or do they just let it sit there and rot? So number one, pick the realtor. Number two, and this is very important for the people that have been in their house, for 30, 40, 50 years. Grandma, the house needs fix up. Oh, no, it's nice. Oh, no, honey, no, it's not. This is nice. I like it. And the new people will do, they can change the color if they want. No, grandma. No. In this market, the only people that are going to come in and change the color are vulture investors like me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, you know what? There's houses on the market that are move-in ready. And if you got a dual income, young owner occupied, maybe they've got one or two kids, they don't have any time to redecorate. They want that place moved in. Now, maybe down the road, they'll, maybe before they move in, they'll throw a coat of paint on the master bedroom. But you want it looking nice, kind of neutrally, light gray, not condo beige, light gray, maybe light blue, something, that picks up, makes it look warm and homey, windows washed, get all the trash out, clean the basement, paint the walls in the basement so that, you've anticipated any water leaks, clean up the front of the house. Again, window washing, light landscaping, paint the iron rails, maybe put in a new lamp, maybe put in a new address sign, but basically make it look curb attractive. And that includes
It's like
edging the lawn. Go ahead, Amari.
it's like for this kind of a buyer, not like the investor kind of buyer, you want them to be able to visualize their life living there, not
Exactly.
have to visualize all the work that they got to do to make it livable. And
Exactly. Right.
yeah,
And then okay, now here's the kicker. Okay, so we're still on number 2. Have a master plan for the house. So let's talk about the kitchen and the bathroom, especially the kitchen. Now, when most people think, well, I got to fix up the house, they're thinking of a, $50,000 kitchen. No, you don't have to do that unless it's really bad.
mhm.
You can paint the cabinets. You can paint the countertops if they're Formica. They make these new products that you can roll on a new finish, make it look new. Probably end up, the floor will probably be an issue because it's amazing. When you change a floor, it changes the whole look of the kitchen. There's a lot
Mhm.
of cosmetic things you can do. A light fixture, maybe flat panel on the ceilings, paint the ceiling white, get all the grease cleaned up, paint the walls, paint the chippy woodwork, wash the windows, maybe paint the counter, fix up the cabinets so they close. A lot of times the older houses, people been there 40, 50 years. The cabinets actually are in great shape. They're the original cabinets. Those can be painted, sprayed
Mm.
out, new pulls, new hinges. I mean, this is what we would do one of our properties, if we wanted to flip it. So that's number 2 is be prepared to spend money, not a lot of money, but certainly spend 20,000 so you're going to get 50, 60,000 more back plus the money you put in. The money you put in should immediately jump the value of the house if it's a tired house. And the most important thing, it will appeal to a wider market, which means you're going to sell the house faster. It's not going to sit on the market. That brings us to number 3. You got to price it right. We're not
Mhm.
in the COVID market anymore. Okay, COVID market in Cleveland was like living in California. House went on, 24 hours later, was under contract. There was a bidding war. That's not what it's like now. It's a balanced market. Buyers aren't feeling pushed. They're not going to overpay. There's inventory creeping back on the market. Interest rates are going to drop, so that's going to introduce a little bit more houses to the inventory in Cleveland. So you got to price it right. But this is where having a savvy, street smart realtor is so important. You've got to
Mhm.
feel like this is what we need to do, this is what we need to spend, and this is what we're going to do to sell it. That's number 3. Everything is coming together now. Number 4, the transition out of a house for grandma is you've got to make sure that you get everything moved out of that house. stage it, get rid of the old lamps, give it, there's ways you can get rid of stuff. Goodwill will pick it up. You get a tax credit, but you got to strip it out, the house, make it look nice and clean, minimalistic. Maybe keep a couch there, lamps, nice dressers upstairs in the bathroom. Everything looks staged, clean, ready to move in. If you have furniture and it's fairly nice furniture, like dining room table, that can be an asset if you leave it there. Because think about the young homeowner coming in. How much furniture do they have if they're coming from an apartment in New York? They're moving back to Cleveland. They may not have a lot of furniture. I know I didn't have a lot of furniture when my wife and I bought our house in '83. Think about you, Amari. How much furniture do you have in your apartment with your girlfriend?
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back. If you've been listening to this podcast, then you understand or should understand the pitfalls of investing in Cleveland real estate. Say you're looking for an investment property to rent, and these are the things that could happen and often do. You overpay for a house, and it's in the ghetto. Then you find that it's a money pit with endless surprise repairs. Your hapless property manager, who may be the brother-in-law of the realtor, gets a tenant who after 3 months stops paying the rent. Then the toilet explodes, and you have nobody to repair it because, guess what? The property manager is not answering the phone. Yep, that's the ugly side of the Cleveland real estate market. But we have a solution. Buy one of our properties. It's been inspected. It's been vetted. It's in a rock-solid part of town. It comes with a Gold Star tenant paying top dollar rent, and we manage it. Call us at 216-371-8160 if you're interested.
Yeah, I mean, we have like a studio apartment's worth of furniture, which is nice and cozy in, a smaller space, but then you upgrade to like a 3-bedroom house, and, it feels pretty vacant.
Right. Once you get some crates, you're going to go to Hotel Liquidator.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact is who's going to buy your house? Who's going to buy your house? And it's going to be probably a new homeowner, which means having furniture in there staged right is going to be an asset.
Right.
Okay, so you're buying from grandma. Is there anything I'm missing, Omari? You're the classic first-time home buyer.
The only thing I can think of is, maybe some of the, emotional ties, people have to their house. I think that can kind of invoke a little bit of convincing on the realtor's end or the contractor's end, someone like us, kind of talking them through, that aspect of it, where they've been in the house for, decades and are attached to these things. And, you got somebody telling you change X, Y, and Z, do this, do that, it all is very logical and very, to the point as far as the goal of transitioning out of the house, getting it sold and maximizing on that opportunity. But, and the reality of it is there's a lot of, like you were saying, yesterday, there's a lot of emotions and psychology at play with the attachment.
They don't want to move. They don't want to move because I don't blame them. You want to, because that's one step towards moving into the grave. They don't want to do that. Who wants to do that? There's got to be an exit strategy, which is taking. And here's the other thing. Here's the next part. What are we? Number 4,
5.
Number 5 is you want to give them space to process the move out, and this is where you've got all these boxes. You've got photographs, you got albums, you got mementos and stuff like that. That can go up in the attic, nicely, neatly organized. that actually could go into the garage, nicely, neatly organized, as long as the garage is, dry, not the
Right.
roof's not leaking. And if it is, you got to fix it anyways. So you could have staging areas where this stuff can get moved out. It's not getting thrown out, because that's what freaks out people. And I don't blame them. They say, well, I don't want people just coming in and throwing out, my wedding dress, or,
Hmm.
my kids' diplomas and stuff like that. No, Grandma, we're not doing that. We're just throwing out the stacks of old newspapers, the stacks of old magazines, the garbage. Most of the stuff we found when we declutter a house, 50% of it is just garbage that is buried under mementos. So, I mean, you can tell what a memento is. You can tell a
Right.
photo album. You can always tell what an empty, potato chip bag is. All right. And that's the stuff that goes in the dumpster. So you've got the mementos archived, preserved. They're there. Family members can come over. They can go through this. You got some furniture that is going to can stay with the house, or maybe one of the kids may want this. But there has got to be an assembly line process to this. So
Right.
we've got the mementos taken care of. Grandma's feeling good. It's happening. She's out of the house and it's ready to sell. We're
Right.
not having her in the house while strangers are walking through. That's the nightmare. So,
Yeah.
well, I'm painting a picture of, if you want this to be successful transitioning out, you're either all in or you're not. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 6, land contract, new home buyer. Let's say you've got a relative or whatever. Think about a land contract, but be very careful as you navigate down this particular road, because they've got to have some skin in the game. They have to be plunking down a big down payment to hold the house, which is forfeited if they back out. And they have to have, maybe a 1-year land contract with an option to buy. That's very tricky. And it needs trickier if you got some goofball nephew from out of state who's going to come in. Oh yeah, I want to buy Grandma's. Oh yeah, I'm going to put a swimming pool in the backyard. Blah 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 blah. Right? No,
Right.
June, and then he's got to have a stable job. I don't want some. I just got out of culinary school. I'm going to start a food truck. No, we're not doing that shit. This is business. It's not personal. Keep that hard line
Right.
there.
Right.
So, and you probably end up not doing a land contract. But this is where you have to have a smart, street savvy realtor. All goes back to number 1, because that street realtor has to be hard as nails. They got to be the person that says no. Hey, Junior, we're not doing that. Okay. And
Right.
everybody's got to get behind the realtor, and the realtor's got the final say. The realtor is going to get that $200,000, $300,000 net profit on the house that Grandma's going to need as he or she transitions out.
Right. You need that team in place to be able to advocate for you.
Exactly. So, anything I'm missing on transitioning out?
No, I think you covered the foundational principles of it.
Oh,
Based on
okay.
what we've
Now,
been talking about.
transitioning in, which means staying in place. We're going to get to that. And I'm going to lead off by a lot of nursing homes. This is what, my wife and I have discovered as she's doing a heroic job dealing with taking care of her aged mother-in-law, who's still in the house, but she's transitioning to a nursing home, 95, had a stroke, about 50% there. Not as sharp as she was, like a year ago. They have social workers that you want to use, both in transitioning out and staying in place for a period of time. Get somebody who can come in and act as a consultant for the family on the house. Now, staying in place means you're going to need to have some Blink cameras set up in the house. The Blink cameras, along with fall detection, is going to help. Family members can check in on mom or dad from their phones on a Blink camera. And you could have 6 Blink cameras in, one in the kitchen, one in the bedroom. You don't need to necessarily have one in the bathroom, but strategically placed so you can detect if they fall.
Right.
You could lease a chairlift for the steps. My mother-in-law has used that for 15 years. Her late husband, my father-in-law, used that. This thing is great. It's now converted your 2-bedroom house, your 2-floor house, into almost a 1/4 house with that chairlift. Go ahead.
Well, one thing about the Blink cameras too is that they have mic functions, so you can speak, to your grandmother, grandfather, whoever, through them, just in case, what's going on isn't very clear based on the cameras. You just need to press a button and you can speak to them, say, hey, just checking in, everything okay? This is so-and-so, just making sure you're good, So
right.
There's that aspect too.
Right. And there's a lot of other, one other thing I'll throw out there, Jubilee, which is a program that allows you to control the Apple TV, your smart TV remotely so that you can play movies. You can play a YouTube video. You can actually control the TV for your aged parent or whatever will never learn how to use a smart TV. My wife's been doing that for the last 1.5 years. Wonderful. Pops on a movie, et cetera, et cetera. You can also use virtual assistants in the Philippines. Hire them to keep an eye on the house. Because when your aged parent is sleeping, that's the middle of the day for them. And it's like having somebody, in the house taking care of them for half the cost, and they don't have to show up. So there's a lot of different ways you could help people in, grips for bathtubs, grips for stairs, that sort of thing, motion sensor lights, 21st century stuff out there. It's all available. It's all cheap. And all these things can really make keeping your aged parent in place effective. So we're going to end there. This is a quickie, transitioning out. We'll have a follow-up next week on this as we get into the holidays. Final thoughts, Amari?
Yeah, I think, it can be an emotional process going through, but having these kind of foundational principles in place, having a proactive, savvy realtor, contractor, social worker, all these people are there to make the process as stress-free as possible. All these things being in place, which can be overwhelming to think about at first, as they get done, things get cleaned up, improvements are made. It's going to make, everyone's life a lot easier in the end.
Good. We'll end there. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll have one next week before the holidays. Thanks, Amari.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike. Okay. Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast with Mike Riley. Please add our show or follow us on Spotify, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Leave a like or comment on the video. All engagement is appreciated. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well for video content coming soon. For any Cleveland listeners or Cleveland Browns fans, you can check out our other podcast, Cleveland Browns Anonymous, for our weekly group therapy session. This is also on all the same platforms as the Cleveland Real Estate Investor.